So let's drop the white bill on mental illness, which in effect is the end of mental illness, which might seem hard to believe, but I'll break it down and explain it to you exactly what this is and how it unfolds. Um, so it's already written in the very definition of mental illness when we look at the DSM. And every, disorder there, like depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, trauma-related ones, delusion and schizophrenic related ones, personality disorders, they all have one requirement, and that is the requirement of clinically significant distress, which means the person is feeling very distressed and impaired and struggling to function in several, one or more really important life domains, usually more, I think, than one, and that it's across a few life domains that it's occurring actually. So that is, when you think about that, in order for the diagnosis to be made, it must be present. So what this means that if we treat clinically significant distress and somebody recovers from that, the diagnosis is no longer valid, and that's called recovery, cure, remission. So instead of having all these complicated diagnosis and all that stuff, which actually the research shows don't have treatment validity, and they don't even claim to have treatment validity if you break that down. But we just need to treat one thing. We just need to treat clinically significant distress. And we know that that is an episodic thing that occurs for a period of time. They can get out of that distress, out of that. They may still have some symptoms present, but they're not overwhelmingly distressed by it, and they're able to function well in life. So this changes everything. It means, and this is what's written into the books. This is what the research says. I mean, this is well validated stuff, that we can measure clinically significant distress, the level of it present. We can measure when it's improving or getting worse. We can measure when it's no longer present. And we know what it responds to as well. It's very clear in the research what it responds to. So instead of getting all this complexity, we simply now just say, oh, somebody's having a difficult period. They're going through a difficult time. We measure the level of clinically significant distress present. And that's all we do. And then we respond with the thing that the research quite clearly says, which is just improving somebody's what they call recovery capital. And we can break that down another time, which is just strengths, supports, resources, skills, tools that they connect with. So people that have really strong recovery capital, they recover from these difficult periods, and that's it. That's just so we can just. So I mean, when I'm working with people and helping them recover as a counsellor, they don't need a diagnosis. So if somebody, and the research is quite clear, if somebody comes to me with a diagnosis or without a diagnosis, the likelihood of them getting better is the same, because it's not a relevant factor. It's not a treatment validity factor. Now, it can be helpful if we want to look into it and get insight and make use of it and use it to access services. It can potentially be helpful in that way, but it's not necessary. What's necessary is to say this person is experiencing some difficulty, some significant distress, some struggles functioning in life, and we just need to help them to recover from that. And the most important thing is to measure it. Tools like the OQ, the outcome rating scale, and so on. Many tools to help us measure it. So instead of having this complicated understanding, and unfortunately, the idea that mental health is an ongoing permanent thing or something like that, no, they're experiencing a period of clinically significant distress. The research is there, it's all well established. I mean, I think what's happened obviously is this way of understanding it, the mental health industry is very involved and very invested in understanding it in this way, and it sort of came about in the 80s, but there's been 50 years of research then that's helped us clarify actually what is really happening, what is really helpful. And we don't need to get into too much worrying about causality and all that stuff. We just know somebody's experiencing this, and then we just give them the stuff that helps, which is understanding relationships, tools, some helpful skills that are relevant to what they want to do, some resources that can help them, helping them put a plan together and learn and grow on. And that's just how people heal from these periods of time. So we don't have to think about it in terms of mental illness anymore. We can just say somebody's going through a really difficult period. Let's measure the level of that's present. And let's make sure that what they're doing, the plan they have to help them address that, is working by making sure it's improving. The level is decreasing each week. And most important, if it's not decreasing each week, we can make some adjustments, because when people do, what really helps in normal recovery time frames are 2 to 8 weeks. So we can have a whole new simplified understanding of what you can still call it mental illness if you want. Or you can just say a period of clinically significant distress, an episode of it that they're experiencing, which I think is a nice way to understand. It's very clear, very straightforward, very descriptive. The person is having an episode. It is for a period of time, and during this period of time they're feeling very distressed and overwhelmed and struggling to function. And then we know, again, I've talked about what the research clearly says is the appropriate response that really helps people recover, measuring progress and helping them build really good recovery capital in a way that's meaningful to them. And why not understand it that way? That's how I understand every client that comes in to see me. Okay, so we measure the level of distress, we have a talk about it, see what's going on, a relationship where they understood, a sense of hope, get some new skills, start moving forward. We'll apply these. We'll, maybe some self-care or some positive self-talk or connecting with some supportive people, maybe talking about what's happening, getting some new insights. This broad range of factors is really what helps people heal. And then we'll measure it and talk about it next week and adjust the plan. And we can have this whole new simplified understanding. And I think it'll be more accessible. Recovery will be more achievable. It'll be clearer what's happening. And then these diagnoses, actually, in that time they can be helpful. Some people have diagnosis and they find it helpful. It gives them insight. It can open up resources to them, and so on. But we also realize that it's not necessary for recovery and healing to occur, and that's clearly what the research says. So we've got all these ideas and stuff that are really holding us back from doing it better. And I think those ideas were there with the best of intentions initially. It was the best we knew, 40, 50 years ago in the 80s and so on. There was a lot of good stuff coming out back then, and it was great for then. But we've had 50 years of research since then that has shown us so much more. And so we can just end mental illness. We don't have to think of it that way. We can think of it in a much more helpful, straightforward manner. And we can then call it a person is experiencing an episode of clinically significant distress. That's all that's going on. And then obviously I've talked about how to help them. And better outcomes, faster outcomes, because we know that we're measuring it week by week, and we don't have prolonged periods of just doing something that isn't working, because if what you're doing isn't working, you get feedback about that quickly, and you can say, well, let's sit down, let's make some adjustments, let's try something else, So that is the white pill on mental illness, and it is wonderful. And all the stuff I've talked about is absolutely there in the research. Indeed, I wrote a book called 50 Years of Research, pointing it all out, and you can go and check it out yourself and look for it. Or just research with AI, or watch some videos, or there's some cool people you can check into, like Michael Lambert or Scott Miller, just they're there if you want something to start. So it's all done. Now, so the red pill is like this, people becoming aware of this, and I think that's very slowly beginning to happen. And then the white pill will be actually implementing this and making it happen, and that really hasn't begun yet. But as I said, my time frames is that over the next decade, more and more of this stuff will people become aware of it, and then hopefully in the decade subsequent to that, we can actually start implementing the white pill. But that's the journey ahead of us, and let's get moving, let's get going, because the white pill it's just wonderful news,